Thanks for staying up later. Roger Corman is back with us, and if you were with us last night, you heard our discussion about his status as what some people call the king of the B-movies, and we ran through some of the titles and talked about some of the movies like The Man with the X-Ray Eyes and A Bucket of Blood and Night Call Nurses, and of course one of his classics, Little Shop of Horror, and the series of movies based on Edgar Allan Poe's works like The Fall of the House of Usher and Pit and the Pendulum and The Raven. So that ground has been covered, but something that we just touched upon last night, and we want to spend the rest of this half hour getting some more information about, is how your career has intersected with some of the biggest names in the recent history of motion pictures. And most of them worked with you when they were early in their movie-making or acting careers. So I'll just throw out a name, and you hit me with the recollection. Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson and I met in an acting class with Jeff Corey when I was just starting to direct, and I felt that I needed more experience as an actor, more training so I could relate better to the actors. And I always remember Jack as probably the most inventive actor I've ever met.
Shut up! Filthy, filthy, filthy degenerate! I beg you to shut up!
Oh, God. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't think about his being hungry. We can't let him get hungry at a time like this, can we? Go to the window, please.
The window, can't you understand plain English? Tell him to get a bottle of milk for the baby.
That's right, isn't it? Milk.
Was the Crybaby Killer the first time you worked with him?
Yes, that was Jack's first part as a lead. He played a teenager who commits a killing and holes up in a drive-in, and the police have the drive-in surrounded. I remember Leo Gordon, who was an actor, wrote the script, and he wrote himself one line just to play a small part in the picture, and the line was, "Teenagers, we didn't have them when I was a boy."
What quality about the young Nicholson was immediately apparent to you?
I think there's a great energy and a great imagination, which was always there, a great sense of honesty, but of kind of fun, glee, improvisation within the performance.
Most people don't like to go to the dentist, but I rather enjoy it myself, don't you? I mean, there's a real feeling of growth, of progress when that old drill goes in. I mean, I'd almost rather go to the dentist than anywhere, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Now, no Novocaine. It dulls the senses.
This is gonna hurt you more than it is me.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Oh, my God, don't stop now!
Well, Dr. Favre, it's been quite an afternoon. I can truly say I've never enjoyed myself so much. I'll recommend you to all my friends.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Could you envision a scenario by which you could work with Nicholson again?
Yes, as a matter of fact, somebody asked Jack on an interview program if he would like to work with me again, and he said, certainly, providing Roger will pay my new salary.
De Niro.
De Niro was one of the most dedicated actors, a really hard-working actor. He was born, raised in New York, and the film we did was Bloody Mama with Shelley Winters playing Ma Barker, and we shot it in Arkansas. Bobby went to Arkansas a month before the start of the film to perfect an Arkansas accent. He did it so well that we eventually dropped the man from Arkansas, who was, as it were, our technical advisor, and Bobby advised everybody on their accents.
In a reversal of what he had to do for Raging Bull, which everybody knows about, blimp up 45, 50 pounds. He wound up losing 25, 30 pounds for this one, didn't he?
Yes. He played the part of a junkie who gradually disintegrated and became emaciated. And I told him at the time I didn't think it was necessary to go that far. I said, if you want to lose a few pounds, all right, but we can do a lot of this with makeup. But he was convinced, and he lost a great deal of weight. Both Shelley, who was a good friend of his, and I were a little bit worried about how much weight he had lost.
My eyes have seen the glory.
Hallelujah!
Hallelujah.
Lloyd, when you are working on those model airplanes, you get to acting awful silly.
No, Ma, it's just that mine eyes see the glory. Hallelujah. Hey, Ma, how you gonna raise yourself a heap of money?
We are going to do a big job. And this time, I am going to go on it with you.
Hallelujah.
Lloyd!
Charles Bronson.
Charlie Bronson is an underrated actor. He's one of the finest actors I've ever worked with, but his persona as a very tough man in motion pictures is really true. For some reason that I will never know or remember, he and I were sparring one time by the side of the set while the electricians were lighting the set, and I kind of put out a left like that. He knocked the left down and came in and very lightly put, I would say, 20 blows into my stomach within maybe 10 seconds. I said, that's great, Charlie. I think I got to go back and study the script now, and I never sparred with Charlie Bronson again.
Who do you see out there, a recognizable young actor or actress, doing mainstream films where you say to yourself, I could put this person in a Roger Corman film, and this person would be perfect for me?
Weirdly enough, an actor who started with me and who is a brilliant actor, and the audience does not know how good he is because of his persona, and that's Sylvester Stallone. Stallone is capable of much more than what he's doing, but he's so successful, so phenomenally successful at what he's doing, that there's no reason or need for him to reach at this time.
Hey, I told you to stop playing that song!
You seem to forget, Joe, that I'm a representative of Mr. President's government. I happen to hold the power of life and death.
Yeah? I happen to hold a clamp saw.
Look out, Viterbo. You may be the second biggest clown in this circus, but if I want you dead, you're dead.
Sit down and eat. I told you to stop playing that music!
Back to De Niro. Obviously, this was early in his career when he did Bloody Mama with you. I don't think you and he would be compatible in terms of how quickly you put your films together and how intensely he throws himself into everything. He strikes me as a sort of fellow that would linger over the slightest nuance for days if that was what was necessary. So did the two of you have conflicts?
No, we didn't have any conflicts whatsoever, because Bobby then, and I don't know how he works now, then was a believer, as I am, in pre-production planning. So the nuances, the subtleties were really there when he came to the set. He, as I said, worked for a month in Arkansas on his character before we shot the film, and would work every night on what he had to do the next day.
Scorsese.
Marty Scorsese is one of the finest directors I've worked with, but a very practical director as well, as most of the good directors are. They are not somebody walking around with their head in the clouds. The film Marty directed for me, his first film as a feature director, was called Boxcar Bertha, which was about a woman train robber in the 1930s. Barbara Hershey played Bertha. And the film was shot on a 4-week schedule, and Marty and I recognized that we couldn't get all of the train photography done in that time, so we set up a second unit to photograph the long shots and the intricate shots of train switching and so forth. And some directors will say they must shoot every single shot, otherwise it isn't their film. They've given away some of their film. Marty recognized that he could not do that, and he worked as efficiently with the second unit as anybody I've ever seen. He laid out every shot in advance so that even though the second unit was directed by somebody else, it really was his vision. Mm-hmm. So it all cut together very well.
Coppola.
Coppola probably is one of the most imaginative and brilliant directors I've ever seen. On his very first film, he showed this. On on the first film he did, he came in exactly on schedule to the day. However, recently, he's changed that part of his persona. When I played a part for him in The Godfather, he came to my dressing room and we had coffee before we shot. And he said, I've forgotten exactly what he said. It was something to the, I remember what he said. He said, you will notice that there's a certain amount of money being wasted on this picture. He remembered what I had taught him, and I guess he was preparing me for the fact that it wasn't going to work the same way. He said, I could save Paramount over $1 million on this picture by telling them what to do, but that's not my job. My job is to direct the film. If I tell them that, it will dissipate my energies. If they want to waste $1 million, that's their problem. I'm just going to direct.
When a Scorsese shows up, or a Coppola, is it apparent right off the bat that this person is special? Or is that just something that makes a good story in hindsight?
It generally is apparent. And usually it's apparent before they direct for me, because they've worked for me in other categories. Francis had been my assistant on several films. Peter Bogdanovich had been an assistant for me. Joe Dante had been an editor and second unit director. Ron Howard had been an actor for me. So
John Sayles, right?
John Sayles had been a writer. Jim Cameron had done special effects and second unit directing. So in each case, I had a little bit of inkling as to their ability before they directed. You can't. Jonathan Demme had been a writer and a producer before he directed. So. Generally, I was pretty certain, but you're never absolutely certain.
How good a director, just in terms of the director's gift, do you think you were? Or are, if you decided to crank it back up again?
It's hard to say. I've won a couple of awards at minor film festivals, and generally, my films have been successful. And generally, I've had quite good reviews from the critics. I would think I would be, however, considered to be a little bit out of the mainstream. And I don't think that I would be ranked with the great directors. You might say an interesting offbeat director.
The most terrifying picture you will ever see.
Let's try and blast it, Hank.
Very foolish.
What's the worst monster you ever created? Even you have to look back on it, and if you see it on The Late Show, you say, this is really bad.
Probably Beast with a Million Eyes. The Beast did not truly have a million eyes, but it was a great title. I was very short of money at that time. It was early in my career, and I started the film in good faith. And money was due me from the distributor from another film on a certain date. And for one reason, as people who know Hollywood accounting are quite well aware, the money didn't come on that date. And I needed that money to build the monster. So I had to build a monster for only, I think, $150 or $200. It was really all the money I had. That monster was not too good.
How about the piranhas, which were, I guess, sort of a scaled-down answer to Jaws? You need one huge shark, but if you're going to create similar terror, you need thousands of piranhas running around in the water.
The piranhas worked pretty well. That film was quite successful. It was the debut of Joe Dante as a director, who's gone on to do a number of good films, including Gremlins 2, which is coming out this summer. And I was pleased with the way the piranhas worked.
When you did all those biker slash hippie slash neo-beatnik films that you were doing in the late 60s, early 70s, how much of that do you think frightened a portion of the audience for whom all these concepts were very disquieting, and they didn't know for sure? They thought, well, maybe this is what it's really like, and thousands and soon millions of people like this will be overflowing in our country. And what portion of the audience was just getting a kick out of this as, boy, this is an unbelievable parody?
I think only the extreme conservatives were frightened by it. Most people enjoyed the films, and as you said, something to the effect of, this is the way it is. We tried to be very truthful about the Hells Angels. Chuck Griffith, the writer, and I hung out with the Hells Angels a fair number of nights, going to parties, doing research, which was very strange, a story in itself.
The research entailed
sitting around. We became the suppliers to the Angels. In order to get into the parties, we brought various, we had beer and a little grass and one thing and another so that we were accepted into the group. And we actually hired the Hells Angels to be in the picture, so the picture really was quite authentic.
Could you have made Easy Rider?
I started out to make Easy Rider. I was going to be the producer.
Well, I didn't know that. The only reason I asked is I know you'd worked with Fonda. I know you worked with Dennis Hopper, and you'd done other films that you know, pertain to bikers and guys out on the road. I mean, could you have had that in your bag of tricks?
Yes, because Peter and Dennis had worked as actors for me in The Wild Angels and in The Trip, and Peter was the one who came up with the idea for Easy Rider, and he and Dennis wrote the script, and Dennis was to direct, and they brought the project to me, and I took it to AIP, and we actually did the preliminary road work when I was the producer of the film, and the project blew up when one of the executives at AIP demanded the right to fire Dennis if he ran a day behind schedule. I think the executive was right to question Dennis's ability to really function on time as a director, but the way he did it was a little heavy-handed, and both Peter and Dennis became offended. And Jack Nicholson, our great friend, was working at Columbia at the time, and he called Peter and he said, why don't you bring the project over here? There'll be no problem. If you fall behind schedule, nobody's going to worry about it. And only one thing, I get the Bruce Dern part. And so the picture went over to Columbia, and Jack did indeed play the Bruce Dern part, and it started the major part of Jack's career.
What sort of motion pictures, apart from your own, appeal to you? Or maybe the way to put it is, who do you regard as the top American filmmakers?
I'm not certain who I would say as the top American filmmakers. The filmmakers I most admire actually are some of the European directors. When I was distributing films, I still am distributing, but when I was distributing a few years ago, I was distributing the films of Ingmar Bergman, Fellini, Truffaut, Volker Schlondorf.
And in fact, you get great credit for that within the film industry, for pushing films like Amarcord, which might not otherwise have been as widely seen without your efforts.
Yes, we really reached bigger audiences for the, quote, art film than had ever been reached before. As a matter of fact, we put an Ingmar Bergman film in some drive-ins, and people said, you can't put an Ingmar Bergman film in a drive-in. But there was a slight shortage of films at that time, and the drive-in owners did average business. They were happy, and I got a letter from Ingmar Bergman, which I've saved somewhere.
What film was it?
This was Cries and Whispers, which won the Academy Award.
Now, can you imagine in the middle of Cries and Whispers at the drive-in, on comes Mr. D. Lish. Hey, kids, wouldn't some nice buttery popcorn go great right now? And how about a big jumbo hot dog? They're all at the snack stand just a few steps away.
Exactly. And from Ingmar Bergman's standpoint, as he wrote in the letter, he was reaching an audience with his films that he had never reached before, and he was delighted. He said, more people are simply being aware of what I'm doing.
With rare exceptions like The Intruder, virtually all your pictures have made money. So I've got to assume that at this point, you've got a nice little nest egg, and you've been in the business for a while, so somebody might say, he's got enough to fall back on so that he can take a chance. He could go off in the direction of The Intruder again. Maybe not that same subject matter, but he could take a swing at the fences and not go back to the formula. Are you ever tempted to do that?
Yes, I am, and as a matter of fact, I probably will. I did do a few films a few years ago that were an attempt to find a new genre. The genre didn't necessarily prove itself, but I was trying to find the low-budget American art film genre. I invented that genre, and unfortunately it was not quite as successful as, say, Car Chases or Monsters, but we did a series of films. The first one, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, which was quite successful. Then St. Jack, Peter Bogdanovich came back to direct that for me, and that won the grand prize at the Venice Film Festival. Jamie Lee Curtis Starred in a picture called Love Letters, directed by a very good young director, Amy Jones, who had started with me. These were an attempt to find something a little bit more serious. They were moderately successful, but not truly successful. So I stepped away from it, but I think I'm going to go back to that. What you say is correct. My films have been reasonably successful over the years, and I think it's time to start gambling again a little bit.
Roger Corman's latest, Frankenstein Unbound, comes out when?
My picture comes out in either September or October, and I have a book which is autobiography, as it were, not of my life, but of my work in films, will come out in August.
How I Made 100 Hollywood Films and Never Lost a Dime.
Right. It's a slightly misleading title because I've made about 250 films and have lost occasionally. However, I put some titles on films that aren't totally true to the film, so I can't complain about the title on the book.
Now, before we get out of here, can you get me a tape of Night Call Nurses and Bucket of Blood?
They're all available. I'd be delighted.
Thanks very much.
Very good, Bob.
Roger Corman, we're out of here. See you later.
Join Bob tomorrow for Big Laughs with John Candy.